G'day, everyone. Welcome to another Toon Under podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's biggest and best podcast. All things Newcastle United. I'm joined tonight by Craig and Mackay. Craig, how you going up there, mate?
I'm good, mate. Just the usual summer cold for myself. So for those regular viewers, if I'm looking a bit pastier than normal, that will be the reason why. It's starting to look a little bit like Casper's ugly brother right now, but I'm over the worst of it, and hopefully I'll come tomorrow morning.
Yeah, you'll be fine, mate. Get a couple of beers in there, you'll be good as gold. So obviously the week off now with Newcastle, got the sort of split round, I guess, if you want to call it that, with the Premier League. So sort of some teams played last weekend, some teams are playing this weekend. We're lucky enough, we're having a much needed 2-week break. When I say we, I mean the club. We're obviously not having the break at the moment. It's been a bit of a quiet week, I think, Craig, in terms of news and transfers and things like that. But as sort of it's kind of kicked off, I guess, in the last, I don't know, probably half an hour, really, our time as we record. There's been plenty of news come out, I guess, in the morning papers over in the UK with links with Kieren Trippier with a potential interest from Bayern Munich and PSG. PSG would have seen him up close twice at the moment. So what do you make of all that? Before we go any further, it's been reported by Graham Bailey. I'm always good to nominate and give credit to the source who breaks the story as well. Whether there's any truth, we don't know. But Graham Bailey, he's the one who's broken the story. Craig, how do you feel about all this at the moment?
I can see why a lot of players are being linked with moves away, especially some of our first team players, because as we're getting into it, we do need to raise funds. We need to spend before we can buy. But Trips is one of those players who's worth more than just a transfer fee in my mind. He's so much more than just one of the starting 11. He's a player on the pitch. He's a player off the pitch. He's also a leader of the locker room. And I think losing somebody of that caliber this stage of the season, when 2 years ago he was the catalyst for all things that were good for us, I'd hate to see for that to go. Of all the players linked to go, he'd be the one that I would want to keep most.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, I think in the last, I was going to say couple of months. I don't even think it's been a couple of months. It's probably been like 6 weeks. There's been a few rumors kicking around about him, and I'm not going to go into detail about what them rumors are, but when his performances on the pitch were uncharacteristically bad for him and what he's performed, that I wouldn't say the substance to the rumors got stronger, but there was definitely more fuel added to the fire of the rumor because of how it kind of may or may not have affected him on the pitch. Like, whatever's happened, he could live a perfect life, and then mistakes still could have happened, and we'll never ever know that. But I mean, he's 33 at the moment, Craig, and if there was truth and substance to these reports that have come out this morning, what's a figure that would make you sell? Given all that you've just everything that you've just said, like, I think when you're buying someone like Kieren Trippier, you're not just buying the on-field stuff; you're actually buying the whole off-field stuff as well. So every player's got a price. Let's put that out there. Every single player's got a price. So with a 33-year-old Kieren Trippier, what's your price?
Well, for a seasoned veteran, current England international as well, leader on the pitch, leader off the pitch. You know, if we can get close to double figures when we only paid 12.5 for him, I would say that is a very good return for a player who is coming to the end of his career. I think he's got 2 years, maybe 18 months left on his current contract, something like that. So
yeah,
I think anywhere close to around 10 million would be a very, very good bit of business. But again, I would still love him to stay.
Yeah, I honestly think it'd have to be something very enticing for them to sell. I don't think it's going to be a cut price move or anything like that. And even if all these off-field sort of rumors and butt scuttling that's gone around, if it's true, the only way I could see it kind of happening is if Trippier's not forced it, I guess, but he's kind of brought it to the table and say, yeah, maybe I do need to get out of here for a little bit just to straighten myself back up again and things like that. I could understand. But even then, I still think you can drive, not a hard bargain, but I think you can get close to a double figure in the millions, obviously, a fee for him. And we'll get into our current financial status a bit later on and everyone's favourite three letters that have been kicking around this week. I think anything 10 and above, I think you probably have to do it, Craig, really. Like, the reality is we have got a very capable backup that's sitting there waiting for him at the moment in Tino Livramento, and he's been man of the match in plenty of games that he's played, albeit probably at left back. He did play a couple at right back in the Cups where Man United sort of comes to mind, where he was arguably man of the match there as well. So we do have a backup ready to go, and they've spent that money on Livramento with the view that he's going to replace Trippier in the future. So the backup's there. Now, whether they reinvest that into another right back or get someone on loan in for the rest, I don't think, especially with Harrison Ashby's loan at Swansea, I'm not sure what the recall kind of options are on that as well as a backup. But we do need – we've got Emil Kraft there as well, so you could probably leave Ashby and not bother calling him back. I think Emil Kraft's filled in admirably when he's needed to, and he's provided he's been a very solid backup for whoever's in that right back role. So that's definitely one to watch, not just over the weekend, I think, but we're probably 11 days out from the window closing. So that's definitely one to follow. And I think if it does come off, I think that's kind of been I wouldn't say forced. Force is probably a bit of a Johan Kabay word, but I think it's been kind of encouraged between Kieren and the club that maybe he does need to leave and get out of the country a little bit to get himself back on track if that's where he needs to be. The other one that kind of broke, I think it was overnight as well, was Jamal Lascelles, Craig. There was I think Besiktas was the club mentioned. Now, here's another one. You're not just buying Jamal Lascelles, the centre-back. I think you're buying Jamal Lascelles, the person, and all that he brings and everything like that. What's an acceptable fee for Jamal Lascelles at the moment, keeping in mind that we don't actually have any centre-back cover, really?
Well, he's only got 6 months left on his contract. He could go in the summer if you wanted to. We could talk to any club on the continent right now if you wanted to, because he is out of contract in the next 6 months. If he wants to go, then he can go in. He will get a massive thank you from me as a fan from the club, because he's been a fantastic servant. He really has. And I totally understand if he doesn't want to sit on the bench for the rest of his Newcastle career. He wants to progress and maybe get the captaincy at another club and take them forward. But again, losing our only dedicated backup centre-back is too risky. Unless they have a ready-made replacement good to go, who either has Premier League experience or is in the peak of their career, but they don't come cheap, then I'm again against that one too, just purely because how red-bare the squad is,
Yeah, I think not so much Trippier because we've got the replacement ready to go, but if something come through for Lascelles that the club are going to consider, I think it's really important that they kind of act on it as soon as they can to give themselves enough time to try and get something back in, I guess, for the last few days of the window and stuff like that. The last thing we want to be doing is either panic buying in the last couple of days or not buying at all and sort of relying on maybe an Emil Kraft and a Paul Dummett as backups for the rest of the year. And I don't really – potentially Dan Burn, but then that obviously relies on Matt Targett's fitness as well. I don't think you can question his form. I think he's been really good, especially the first kind of 6 months he come through on loan. He was fantastic. So maybe that's a Lewis Hall. Maybe he gets to sort of get a foot in the door if that sort of happens and we need a rejig. So that's another one to watch as well. The last one we kind of covered, I think there's been videos of this, so this one's going to be a little bit more official. Craig, is Javier Manquillo is spotted in Spain the rumours or the reports are saying it's Celta Vigo reunited with Rafa over there. I don't care about a fee. I'm not sure about you, but fees are irrelevant. Just get him off the books and just a handshake. Thanks for everything, mate. And good luck for the future. I don't think we're in a position to stick our hand out. More give them a high five for taking wages off the books for 6 months. So you feel the same about that, I'd imagine?
Yeah, losing Manquillo doesn't affect the squad in any which way, shape, or form, but it does help bring down that wage cap. I think he's on around about 45 grand a week, so that can help go towards a new signing, bum up somebody else's contract, and I'm sure we'll get to someone's certain contract in a little while.
Yeah.
He can go again. Thanks for wearing the shirt. You had some cracking games. You had some magic moments. That goal at Old Trafford. He was never going to break through to this first team. Never going to be consistent.
No.
And it's just another part of that deadwood that we are slowly shipping off,
Yeah. So we'll get to that one, mate, that you just mentioned. Craig Hope reported this morning. Well, it was this morning, kind of our time, so probably late at night. Not late at night, late evening in the UK. Joelinton's contract, they're 18 months out from his contract running up. The reports suggest that they're pretty far apart in their valuations of how the club value him and where Joelinton kind of values himself. And I'm not sure. I think there's obviously truth to the story because he hasn't signed a new contract and he's 18 months out. So you can definitely write a story, but I think we could both write that story, Craig, that someone's 18 months out of contract. You could write the same about Jamal Lascelles because he's 6 months out of contract. But unfortunately, Jamal Lascelles probably doesn't push the needle as much as a Brazilian international does. So that's probably why they don't quite do the story. But let's take the story on face value that they're very far apart in their evaluation, and Joelinton wants to be the highest paid player at the club. How does that sit with you?
To be honest, I think that's a lot of bullshit. I don't see Big Joe having that type of mentality to the point where he wants to be paid more than Bruno. As I said earlier on this morning, I think there is a level of humility there with Big Joe, and he knows Eddie and this club have turned around his game effectively. If it wasn't for Eddie, he would not be a Brazilian international right now. He just wouldn't be. So he owes Eddie, maybe not the club, but certainly Eddie, a debt of gratitude. And he needs to just say, you know what? I'm happy where I am. The club has done wonders for me since the takeover. Yes, I want an increase in pay because I am a better player than what I was 2 and a bit years ago. And nobody would ever question that. And he probably deserves an increase in his salary. But does he deserve to be the highest paid player at the club? Nah. I don't know what Bruno's new salary is. Wouldn't surprise me if it's close to 200k a week. But I don't think Big Joe is worth that. And on the grand scheme of things, when Bruno doesn't play, we don't win games. We've won games when Big Joe doesn't play. So that shows the importance of having Bruno as opposed to Joelinton. He is a cracking player for us, and he's a very important player, but he doesn't deserve to be the number one paid player at the club.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there needs to be it's a tough balance. I mean, you've got the improvement that he's shown in the last couple of years when Eddie took over from what he was. Now, I have read a fair bit of stuff about him, and he did do a lot of work off his own bat with some, I guess, coaches who weren't affiliated with the club, and they would help him with more technical stuff, not so much the game plan side of things, but the technical aspects of the game that he outsourced himself and paid for himself. Now I know he's on a lot of money, and sort of that money probably wouldn't be that much to him compared to what it would be for two plotters like you and me, Craig. But I think sometimes he needs to think as well that he was probably paid overs when he got to the club. I think the transfer fee was, not that he had any say in the transfer fee, but I definitely think his wages would have been significantly increased from Hoffenheim. And he was probably getting a bit of overs. Now, I'm not saying that he should be paid unders now, but I think he deserves a pay rise. I think he's coming into his prime, 27 years old, and he deserves to be paid for how he plays. And I think he's a very powerful player, and he's a very important player in the team, but I agree with you. I don't think that he should be anywhere near Bruno or even Alexander Isak for that matter in terms of who our highest paid players are. So I'd hope he's probably in the top 6, but not in the top probably 2, that's for sure. So that's that. So watch your space. I'm fairly confident that him and the club will come to some kind of meet in the middle arrangement and things like that with this sort of stuff. So
the good thing is with Big Joe is he's injured right now. He's probably going to have surgery, so he's going to miss the remainder of the season. He's not going to get sold this January because nobody buys an injured player. It's as simple as that. So they've got 6 months or however long to thrash out a new deal before the summer transfer window opens. And then if he still doesn't want to sign a new deal and we can't come to agreement, then let him move on. If he wants to go, let him go. But 6 months is a long time in the world of football. Who knows what can happen?
Yeah, and this injury probably doesn't help his cause, really. Like, if it is surgery and things like that, quads is a major muscle, one of the biggest muscles, if not the biggest muscle in your body. Like, there has to be an element of hesitation, I guess, from the club that they're not going to pay this guy. I don't think they're going to pay him and make him the highest paid player at the club, but they're going to pay him really good. And I think they want to make sure that his body can hold up and he's going to recover from this injury if indeed the reports are correct. I don't think we'll probably find out about this until Thursday or Friday next week when Eddie's next press conference is, when the official kind of word comes out, if that's what's going to happen. So to watch this space, I think it'll get sorted. They'll come to some kind of an agreement. I think he loves his time here and he's really grateful. He's got Bruno with him. They're best friends. His family seems really settled here as well. So I don't envision this being a problem. So having said that, Craig, selling players. Now, from all reports, we can't afford a pot of piss in at the moment, and we can't afford a Calvin Phillips loan deal, and FFP is the letters on everyone's lips, and we're not going to get into the debate around the whole FFP rules and things like that, and the full value of market value sponsorship stuff. We're not going to get into all that. So there's been a whole lot of talk from, I guess, nearly everywhere you consume your soccer that the FFP and the elite, the top 6, and it's a protection racket and all that. We're not going to get into any conspiracy theories like that. So we've heard a lot of problems, Craig. We're here to offer solutions, all right? So how can Newcastle United not afford a player in January, but they can in the summer? We're going to tell you how right now.
Big thing is the brand of the shirt you're wearing right now. When that money kicks in, that kind of turns us into a mini superpower in the Premier League. Yes, it's not Big 6 money, but it's the biggest outside of the Big 6. And that is a massive step in the right direction. Going from, I think it was 5 million Castore paying us to 40 million of what Adidas are going to give us. Plus, we also take back control of the retail scape of St. James's Park. So everything we sell, we make money off, which is absolutely massive. That's huge in my opinion.
Yeah, massive. So come, I guess, July the 1st, when the new financial year kicks over, I dare say the Castore deal will run out then and Adidas will kick in. So it's very difficult to find an accurate valuation of the sponsorship. So the stuff I kind of dug up last night was it's at least 20 million a season in terms of just the sponsorship. Okay, so that'll see Newcastle join Manchester United, Real Madrid, Arsenal, Juventus, and Bayern Munich as an elite club in the whole Adidas sponsorship pyramid. So they'll be treated just like them other 5 clubs are, in terms of they'll get their own bespoke kit and everything like that. They won't get like the generic kind of stuff that a lot of other clubs do down the pyramid when it comes to Adidas as well. So, and like you mentioned, Craig, on top of the value of the 20 million a year, he's taking back control of the club shop. Now, I wouldn't know, I didn't look, but it has been a long time since the club have owned the shop. Obviously, Mike Ashley turned it into a Nufc Direct and stuff like that. And then Castore used that as their, I wouldn't say flagship store, but one of their main stores as well. And the money stayed with Castore. So to have the money that's getting bought out of the club, getting put back into the club, is going to be huge. And I mean, we're not rocket scientists, me and you, but I'm sure anyone with a quarter of a brain would know that if Adidas released any kind of retro wear and things like that, there's going to be a lot of poor people in the north, not just the northeast. I'd say worldwide, because this stuff is going to absolutely fly off the shelves, and I wouldn't be surprised if they'd done maybe a deal with Newcastle Brownell to use their logo again with things like that and get a percentage of the sales and stuff like that. Even if they don't, I mean, just the club logo and the Adidas on them without the Brownell will sell like absolute hotcakes, and they'll make, if the sponsorship's 20 mil, I could see them make 15 mil a year easily through the club's shop in just retro kits themselves. Like, they will go absolutely cocoa bananas.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they sell more retro kits than official season kits.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me.
No. So there's, let's conservatively say 30 million next year through Adidas and club shop sales and things like that. So all this was going to kick off in July the 1st for the next financial year. The next one's Salah. So they're sponsored the next year of their sponsorship. So that's rumored to be about 25 mil a season, Craig. So we'll get another payment out of that. So what does that put us up to, mate?
55 mil.
55 million. Great, maths. I'll just test you to see if you're on the ball there. Well done. So in the last, I reckon maybe 6 months, the club have announced lots of, they're not major sponsors, but still commercial partners is probably the correct way to interpret them. Yeah. So the sponsorship with Saudi Airlines, I think, or is it Saudia or Saudi? I'm not 100% sure how you say it, but they're now the official airline of Newcastle United as well. I know in the last financial year, there was it Dr. Snip? I think he jumped on board as a commercial partner, and there was a few other little ones like that. So just in the last 6 months, there's been that one, which is rumored to be about $3 million a year. Bet MGM UK is the club's official, I guess, online gambling partner as well. In Post UK, which is Europe's leading out-of-home delivery provider, Craig. I'm not sure if you know about them.
No.
And Fenwick in the last, it's probably in the last sort of 4 to 6 weeks, Fenwick's jumped on board as a luxury retail store partner as well. So all these little sponsorships, they all add up. Yeah. So they're all just adding up. Let's just say that's another 10 mil, Craig. So we'll be up to about 65 million now in revenue and things like that. The Champions League money is going to be in the next financial year as well. So they can use that to just put in the kitty, add towards transfers, player wages, things like that. And I think we got a little bit of money from that summer series that we played in America, the preseason tournament as well. So there's going to be money there that wasn't accounted for in this period that we will get in next year's accounts. So come July 1, there will be a lot of money there. The next ones are the players that you spoke about earlier, mate, the deadwood, as you called them. So the players out of contract who we're paying ridiculous wages for players who are barely going to play. Let's be honest. So Manquillo's probably off in the summer, like you said. He'd be around 40K a week. Matt Ritchie as well. Paul Dummett, Emil Kraft. These are the guys who are barely playing, but who are chewing up. Now, I've done a little bit of rough calculations, and that's about 145K a week in wages that we'll save when we don't renew these guys' contracts. So this is why we can't buy players now. But once we get this money in come July the 1st of this year, we'll be in a lot better position. Now, obviously the last way to generate income and revenue into the club is through player sales. So Darren Eales has been very vocal about this in the interviews he's kind of done in the last couple of weeks once the accounts were released. So, pardon me. We're not trying to shoot Bambi here, or we're not putting anyone in the shop window. It's just how I've, I guess, who's the sacrificial lambs we can get rid of, Craig, for a bit of cash? That's kind of how I've thought of it. So this was, like I said, I've done this last night. So this was before the Kieren Trippier rumours and the Jamal Lascelles rumours had kind of gone. I'm going to ignore Javier Manquillo because I don't think we're going to get a fee for him anyway. So if we can get 20 million for Miguel Almiron, which I think that's a reasonable figure. I don't think I'm being too nuffy or looking at things with black and white glasses when I say 20 million. And potentially Matt Target for 15 million. So with that money, so when that money comes in, so that's just, for example, that's 35 million. We can amortize new signings. So that 35 million comes in the bank straight away. But when we go to buy players, we can actually spread the wage over a 5-year period. So keeping in mind that everything's trending towards Lewis Hall being a summer signing for around 30, 35 million. I think that's already been organised with Chelsea, and him being on loan was part to do with FFP because we couldn't actually afford that fee at the time. So we've just kind of kicked it down the road 12 months. So given all that, I think we will be in a position, Craig, where we can buy at least probably 2 or 3 players around the 40 million mark again. Now, whether they do that and they can sell someone else or whatever, I'm not sure. I don't think they'll do that. I think they might even go a bit higher. And if you get 3 players over maybe 50 million, you can amortize that 10 million a year over the 5 years, and that'll sort of give you your 30 million that you've just got in for these 2 players as well. So there is creative accounting that seems to be the catchphrase at the moment. I know that a lot of people have mentioned that the best way to, I guess, sell players is sell from the academy, where you haven't actually paid a fee for a player and they've come up and you basically it's 100% profit. You haven't sort of bought low, sold high. It's 100% profit. Now, there's one name that's sprung to mind, Craig, and I know this would have broken your heart when you're seeing Lewis Miley's name mentioned as someone who they could potentially sell. I couldn't be more against this if I tried. Now, I know he's been great, and it just take away his actual on-field performance and what he's shown as a fresh-faced 17-year-old that looks about 12. I think it sets a really, really bad example for any potential players who we're trying to bring up through our academy. Now, I think you really have to play the long game with this, and definitely not the first one who's come through under our new ownership. You flog him off at the first opportunity because it's not really going to be enticing for other players, and we really need to build that academy up and get it to a level where we do produce players and like Man City and Liverpool and teams like that who can sell players out of the academy for 10, 12 million that no one's ever heard of before. We need to get it to a position like that. But to do that, I think we need to get the players in and build it, and selling the first one that comes through, I don't think it's a very good idea.
No, I think selling Miley would effectively take us back to the 80s when we sold Gaza, Beardsley and Waddle, to the point where we had to, because the bigger clubs were sniffing around and it was a great opportunity for them. And I think Miley, yes, he's 17. He might be a little bit starstruck with the players around him, think that could go and play with other great names and stuff. But I think his head's quite well screwed on. I think it's one of the reasons why he's had his opportunity. And I think Eddie spoke about that as well. But yeah, selling Miley or any potential prospect right now, when they're not going to be worth much, not really worth doing or so. Give them maybe another year or 18 months or so. And if they made a few appearances in the first team, that's just going to bump the value up and it could treble their value. And was it that bloke who you're about sold from Man City for 12 million? He barely kicked the ball for the first team. But I think he had an appearance in a third round of a League Cup appearance.
Yeah, like a couple of cup games and stuff like that, Yeah,
so it's bonkers, the valuation of some kids these days. But yeah, Miley is definitely a player for the future. And I can't see him going anywhere unless a stupid offer comes in And by stupid, I mean, I would even hazard a guess it would have to be in the region of 50 million right now, just for the club to even consider, because he could be £100 million player in a few years, in say 5-7 years or whatever, the way inflation is going with players anyway. He's certainly not that now, not even close. But player prices are always rising, and he's English as well, so he's got that tax on his head too.
Yeah, I think the way Man City do it's the way to do it now, where you insert that buyback clause in the contract as well, so you kind of do cover yourself where you don't end up you have a player like Alan Shearer leave your academy and end up you have to buy back for a world record fee. So just for everyone that's watching and listening, I think the FFP stuff is pretty accurate in terms of this transfer window, but I think it's really important to know that this isn't going to be a seasonal thing. I think it's just a temporary thing for this window until all this new money will come in at the end of the season, and we're in a better financial position to really start launching into players, and we might be in a better position to start selling a couple as well.
There is also the potential sale of Ivan Toney this window. So when we sold him to Peterborough, we put a clause in the contract that every time he gets sold onto another club, we get a percentage of Peterborough's cut of that sale. So if he goes to Arsenal for however much, we then get a knock-on fee of that as well. So if he does go this window, then there's a little bit of extra cheddar cheese for it. So who knows what that fee could be? We don't know what the percentage actually is. The Peterborough chairman wouldn't say. I don't know he's legally allowed to say, but either way, there's another little potential cash flow for us coming if Toney does make that move, which hopefully he does.
Part of me hopes he does. For our financial sake, but I think there's a bigger part of me that thinks it'd be a real dick move if he did. Like he's really done nothing. Like he's shit canned Brentford on numerous occasions since he's been there. And then they've stood by him. They've paid his wages through this whole gambling ban that he's had. And the moment he's allowed to come back and play again, he wants out of there. I think that's piss poor, mate. Like I think that is shit.
I agree. But if they want to cash in, then let them do it.
And this is the whole problem with FFP, isn't it? The rich clubs, the poor clubs have to sell their best players to the top 6 clubs to try and keep them sort of relevant so they can buy more players like we spoke about earlier. You can amortize the contracts and things like that. And it's just a vicious cycle. The amount of times that a top 6 clubs bought the best player from someone outside the top 6.
Yeah.
And they can because they've got the money and all it does is just it keeps the shop market closed. And I think Aston Villa have just sort of reaped the rewards of that through the Jack Grealish sale, and then the players that they've brought, they've made them better as well. And then West Ham's kind of in the process of doing that now with the Declan Rice money and things like that. Brighton, they've sold about $2 billion worth of players to Chelsea over the last couple of years. So they'll be fine for ages because they've got all this money to spend. We're the only top 10 club with no assets to sell, really. So that's why the sponsorship stuff's important, and there'll be plenty of other random sponsorships, no doubt, that get sort of announced between now and the end of June the 1st in readiness for next year. So keep your eyes peeled. We'd love to hear the most random one. We should have a competition, Craig, the most random sponsor that the club signed between now and the end of the season, because I reckon there's going to be a heap of them. So, I think that's about it, mate. Well, if anything else breaks with regards to transfers incoming or outgoing, we'll jump on and we'll have a brief discussion about it and things like that. But, apart from we're 19 days into the transfer window and it's been dominated by talk about FFP and not actually players incoming. And Newcastle are the only team that aren't doing anything. I think just about nearly every other club in the Premier League's not really pulled the trigger or anything yet. So, watch this space. If anything happens, we'll be straight on to talk about it and things like that. So, Craig, thanks very much for jumping on, mate. Appreciate your time.
No worries, Jasmine.
Go get yourself a nice cool shower or something like that, just to chill off a little bit before you hit the hay for a night. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and comment, subscribe to our videos and stuff like that. We're nearly at 1,500 now, so that'd be awesome if you could do that. Anything else, mate, before we leave, Craig?
No, let's just hope we get 1 or 2 players in before the window shuts, and we keep the majority of our big names too.
That'd be awesome. All right, I'm with you. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, mate.